Okay, welcome back to another chat with Pat. And today we're going to be doing my pick. I chose the 1978 album Power in the Darkness by Tom Robinson with the EP included because that's initially how I got it, probably in the late 70s, early 80s. Tom started out in a trio called Cafe Society, and he was signed by Conch Records, which is owned by Ray Davies of the Kinks. And it sold a whopping 600 copies. So apparently Ray didn't like that because you're not going to make any money selling 600 copies. And Tom didn't like it because he didn't think that Ray had really come up to bat in promoting the album and getting things done. And apparently a huge rift between these two guys opened up for years. And they each actually wrote and recorded a song each, slamming the other one, which I thought was great. In fact, on this album, on the EP, Don't Take No for an Answer, is Tom's version of why Ray is such an asshole. And apparently at one point, the band were on stage in a club in London, and Ray comes in, and they hadn't seen Ray in a long time, and were wondering what was going on with their careers. And as soon as Ray came in, Tom gave a signal to the band, and they started playing Tired of Waiting for You, which is one of Ray's songs, which I don't think helped the cause much. So after Cafe Society did not break any records, perhaps for poorest sales, he went on to form the Tom Robinson Band, and they did two albums, the classic Power in the Darkness, and I even have the second album here. The other one's in LA. This is Tom Robinson 2, which was not as received as well as the first album. After the second album, because generally when your second album flops, there's a bit of consternation in the band, they broke up. And Tom at that time formed Sector 27, and they put out an album, which is a very good album, but that also flopped. So by then, Tom's bankrupt. He has a nervous breakdown and ends up in Berlin, living in the spare room of a friend's apartment. And eventually he gets back to songwriting and pens North by Northwest, which was his first solo album. And on this album, War Baby was a big hit in England and redid his career. But also he did a song called Listen to the Radio, which was co-written by Peter Gabriel. And Toronto people will know the song because it was a top 20 hit by Pukka's Orchestra, which made him a few bucks. So he's released 20 albums under his own name and his band names during his career. And he's been also a radio personality and obviously a civil rights advocate. Now, what I found fascinating, because Tom is gay and was one of the real, in the late 70s, early 80s, pushers of tolerance and an open society and being able to love who you want. And I think in the 80s, he actually fell in love with a woman and had two children and received a huge backlash from some of the very gay community that he had supported and had supported him. And he got quite pissed off because, Power in the Darkness in particular is a song about tolerance and basically I am who I am and my body is my own body and I should be able to do with it what I want. And all the people who had supported that stance when he decided he was in love with a woman didn't support that stance anymore. They felt he should stay and be gay, which he says he's bisexual. He loves women, he loves men. But basically, in the end, he said, fuck off and listen to the song again, because I'm going to do what I want. That was what the entire whole movement was about. And I think he's right. What did you think of the album?
Okay. It took the first song off the mark, and I'm sorry, I don't have the album in front of me, so I can't remember the names of all the songs the way that
Up Against the Wall.
So
the first
you
song
are so proficient at that, and I'm not.
Yeah.
The very first song, and I went, oh my God, he's given me a punk album. Punk and rap are two genres that I'm not I don't listen to frequently, shall we say. However, I played the album on repeat. I actually had it on up on my computer through my stereo on YouTube, and just played through the album. And it sort of grows on you. There's still, the opening song is still not my favorite. And of course, what really perked me up with the album was I Shall Be Released. And the reason that's a Bob Dylan song. Now, the reason that sort of caught my ears is because it's a familiar tune to all of us. We know it from somewhere. We've heard it somewhere before. So I thought, okay, I love the version that he did. So I went back and started listening to it again. Right, it's a statement album, because he was hugely into the anti-neo-Nazism, politicism, the song about the rights to be gay or free to be gay or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that became quite an anthem for them. On the whole, I'd have to say it's not an album that I would have gone seeking, but having listened to it, I don't know how many times I listened to it. I think I lost count. Understanding the times of when it came out, and probably would have, and in England at the time, which was hugely political in the early 70s. I probably at that time would have been right on it and gone out and bought the album, because you get the feeling from the album of what they were living through is what I got. Too Good to Be True, I really liked. I love what the keyboards add to that. Up Against the Wall was good. Of course, I Shall Be Released. The little story about one of the times that they were singing the song about what is it called again? Free to be gay?
Glad to be gay.
Glad to be gay. They're singing it, and Robinson, they're in a club somewhere in England, and Robinson realized everybody's singing and they're rah-rah-rahing and they're pumping their fists and everybody's singing along. And then he realizes that the audience is not understanding what the song is about. So he stops it.
It's a cheery song on one level,
walks over to the
dark
keyboard player. Walks over to the keyboard player, gives him a big smooch on the lips, and the crowd just freezes. Like, a couple of guys in the back are going, "Oh my," because they weren't tuning into it. The little story doesn't say if he got back to the song or not. I think he probably would have, but he was a real strong believer in freedom for everybody.
Yes.
And the rights of everybody. And it's a very powerful album for that. And I think it resonates today. So is it the top of my hit list? No, but I would actually, having listened to it now and understanding where it came from and putting all that together, I would probably go out and purchase it if it was available for purchase today.
I played this a ton in the 80s, and I'm not gay, but this album resonated on a level. I don't know, but what I really liked, it is kind of a punky album of the time.
Oh yeah.
But what I really liked about it, which is atypical for how angry this album is. I mean, it is really an angry album, and it talks about, it's almost apocalyptic in spots. It's the breakdown of society. It's oppression of people. Violence. But with all of that, it's very tuneful. He just has a wonderful way. A lot of people, when they get this angry, they lose that catchiness in the song. Yeah. But this manages to, because he's subtle in a lot of ways, like with Glad to Be Gay and a bunch of those kind of songs, with the irony, but also he just has a way. There's a little dance hall sing song in a British dance hall in some of these songs. There's a lot of influences in there. There's a little funk Power in the Darkness, for instance. Yeah. Kind of a funky thing. And then it has that little comedy bit, I think, which he borrowed from, I think, on the album Monty Python. I think that's from one of their bits. Just the way it fits together. Long Hot Summer, Ain't Gonna Take It, Winter of '79, You Gotta Survive. They're all catchy songs. And weirdly, when it's so dark, just so apocalyptic in spots. Yeah. He has a song like Cortina on there, which is a goofy song about a car, and Martin, which I thought was a very heartwarming song.
Yeah.
About his brother, and I mean, it's just a little sing-songy thing, but he has those sing-songy things where you can get into the concert and people are singing "Glad to Be Gay," 1, 2, 3, 4, Motorway.
Yes, that one's huge on the concert scene.
Yes, I mean you can, but I just think that is what separates this from a lot of those very, very angry albums, was his ability to bring tune to it, to bring a little subtlety in ways to songs that aren't subtle in so many other ways. And that's, I just think it's a classic. Where would you put this on a 0 being Rob Schneider, 10 being best?
Well, on the note of subtlety, I would say it's a very subtle album that slaps you inside of the head.
Yes.
It is, subtly. Where would I give this? I would actually give this, the album. I had to think about that last night because I had to put myself in the context of the times and bring it forward. I would actually give this a 7.5.
Mm-hmm. I would give it a 9.5. I just think this is one of those classic albums of the time. And having bought it at the time, probably late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in there, and just playing this, and of course, when we do these shows, I listen to the album over and over again, and every one of those songs perks your ears up. There's a little hook, a little something in every one of those songs that brings you back to that time. So I'm soft-hearted here. I'm going to go with the nostalgia, plus how really terrific I think this album is in its timelessness. I'm going to give that a 9.5. I think that's where it stands. Now the cover. What would you give that cover?
The cover, I immediately thought of the Black Panthers, and I went, wow, what am I about to listen to? The cover, actually, I am going to give, having understood the album and listened to it and the context of the times and bringing it and all of that wrapped up, I'll actually give the cover a 9.
Wow.
Because it's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The album is very powerful. And it symbolizes everything that he's trying to make people understand inside those lyrics, inside that music.
Yeah.
And it's a little Black Panther-y, but I think it's very powerful. And if you're going through the racks, that one would grab your attention. Yeah, for sure. So I would say a 9.
Yeah, because of the Black Panther thing, it might throw you off just a tiny bit. You might think it's possibly a reggae album, maybe in a way. But I agree with you. It's a perfect symbol of what is inside this album, which is freedom. I mean, power in the darkness, rising up, not taking oppression, just standing up. And I would give it an 8.5. I think it's just a terrific album cover. And when you're flipping through, you do notice that, and you wonder what it is. But from that cover, there's going to be something powerful inside, and there certainly is.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we are. We differ a little on the content, but then again, I've lived with this for. I'm at a 9.5, and you are at a 7.5.
7.5.
7.5. But she doesn't like punk albums, so I think that's a breakthrough. I think maybe we'll do Black.
It is a breakthrough. I would suggest that people actually do give it a listen. And if you have a hard time getting through the first time, listen to his rendition of I Shall Be Released and then start from there and backtrack, because it all starts to come together.
I think if you started with some of the catchier, Martin, I Shall Be Released, Sing If You're Glad to Be Gay, they do bring you into it through their tuneful playfulness. And
Too Good to Be True. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the cover, you gave it a 9, or is it 9.5?
Nope, 9.
9. I gave it an 8.5. I think we're very close there, and it does represent, I think, what we see inside this thing. So I will put some songs at the bottom here. You can check them out yourself, and sing If You're Glad to Be Gay, man. And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from her.